That one. Obedience. Yeah. I'll get more on that later. You can go to the next slide. So a little bit about me. My name is Clay Preston Caldwell. I was born here. I was born in Grundy. My dad went to Cave Spring, and my mom was raised in Grundy. And I went to CLI even before I was born, down at the old church area that's more closer to Glenver. I played baseball, well I still play baseball, and hockey as long as I can remember. Pretty sure I started baseball first, but then got into hockey, got big into both, and now I'm only playing baseball. And I love road trips. Used to be on them all the time for hockey. Went as far as driving to Niagara Falls for a tournament. And last thing, I really like Bojangles. So if it's ever my birthday and you want to give me something, give me a gift card to Bojangles, and then you'll be my friend. Oh, Pascal.
When's your birthday?
December 18th. Yeah, 2003. Oh, I forgot to say. I love you, Mom. So you might not be able to read it at the top, but this is the first thing that I thought about, especially for my testimony, is why do we obey? Why do we obey what God has for us? And that's so we can inherit the promises of God. So what exactly is his promise? And his main promise that God spoke to me was his plan for our life. His biggest promise of all is that we have a higher calling and we're not going to be abandoned or forsaken by him. And so it starts in Genesis 12 where it says, "Now the Lord has said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make you leader of a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall." What is it? Is it the honor? I don't remember what it says. Be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you, and you, all the families of the earth, shall be blessed. Yeah, I really like that. That's where it all starts, and with Abram obeying, then that leads to everybody in the world being blessed through the lineage of Jesus, because it's all connected back to Abram. And I think you can go to the next slide. I don't have more on that. So this is more about why we obey. I had thought about reading all that, but that's Matthew 1. That's the lineage of Jesus. And every single time I read the Bible, and I feel like I needed to read the book of Matthew, I would always skip this part because I thought it was just context. And if you wanted to know certain people, or if you were doing like really, like an in-depth study, you would like study all those people and everything if you were like big into it or something. But I always skipped it because I thought it had no meaning. But this shows how vast God's plan is, because he promised Abram that through him all the people of the world shall be blessed. And with all those people, God worked through every single one of them to bring Jacob begot Joseph, the son of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. So all of that, all those people might have thought, well, like who am I? Like, why would God choose me? God doesn't have a big plan for me. They might have thought, oh, I'm just like an ordinary person. But when you look back through it, that's how Jesus came. It's just a perfect plan, and it's just so much beyond what we can think, and we're not meant to believe it, or we're not meant to comprehend it. We're meant to believe it. But if we were able to comprehend it, then it wouldn't be such a great plan. Because if you read that once over, and you wanted to recite every single person through that, you probably wouldn't be able to do that. And if you did, you probably didn't know what like one of their favorite colors or how many hairs were on their head. But Jesus knew every single one of those things. And that's just crazy because if we would understand God's plan, then it wouldn't have as much meaning as it does. Because we're not meant to understand it, because there has to be a faith factor in that. And I got more notes on that, but I don't know where I put that. Yeah. Yeah. So this kind of leads into my testimony because I was always in sports. I was here, then there. I was never here at church from, I don't know, there's like a period where I like almost disappeared. Like I don't even remember because I always hung out with Nate's family and Josiah's family, and then there's like a period of time, and I was like, I don't know, 5 years old to like 13, where I just do not remember seeing Josiah or Nate. And it's so weird. But I was always like either playing hockey or out playing baseball or just somewhere. And I never really thought that negatively impacted my spiritual life until, I don't know, until like 15 years old or something like that. And then I started just coming to church more, and I don't really know why, but then I felt led to quit hockey so I could be with God more. And it's not that hockey was bad. I had a lot of great friendships, and they were good friendships. They weren't bad, but they were keeping me from God. And you could, if you play hockey and you can still be in church, I'm not saying that like all hockey's bad, all sports are bad. That's not true. For me, that's the thing that was keeping me from obeying God. And once I learned to obey and listen to God, then He can work through me to other people. Because if I still played hockey and I still played baseball to the extent that I was, I probably wouldn't be up here. I'd probably be playing junior hockey somewhere up north. But that's besides the point, because I'm here now and I'm living for the Father, so that's a big plus. I don't think I had anything more on that slide. You can go ahead and go to the next one. So why didn't I obey? That's more about my testimony. And then Acts 9 is the best representation of this. So basically, backstory, there was Saul who got turned into Paul, but when he was still Saul, he was on the road to Damascus and he saw God, and he got scales put on his eyes. And I probably should put that up there, like all the context and stuff, but he was persecuting Christians, and then he saw God, and then God was going to work through Ananias to make him become Paul. But then Ananias says they have given him authority so that he will take hold of everyone who believes in you. He will tie them and put them in prison. And the reason I failed in obeying was because of pride, and this is like somewhat like Ananias' pride in this instance, because he says that he will take hold of everyone who believes in you, he will tie them and put them in prison. But that's not really, I guess he does mean that, but it's because inside Ananias feels that he's going to fail. Like God's plan for him preaching to Saul and praying with him is going to fail. And then Ananias feels like in that failure, he's going to be tied and put in prison. But he doesn't have faith in God's plan like I did. But then Ananias then proceeds to obey the Lord, and through that we have Paul, who's done a crap ton of great things. Like wrote, I don't know, how many books in the Bible did he write? I don't know. But yeah. How many more is? Oh yeah. So back to my testimony. I had always played sports, and everything I did mattered on my success. And I didn't really care what I had to do to go about that. If I was mean to people or stepping over people just so I could succeed. I only cared about how the world viewed me. And that's one of the reasons that I had to let go of playing hockey, because that was another thing. Like if I lost, I'd be in a whole bad mood the whole 3 hours it would take to get home on like that Sunday or whatever. And I didn't really realize that until too late, but it wasn't too late. Yeah, so with God in the world, you can fail all the time and still be his child and be his chosen vessel to go out and bring others to him. And one of my coaches, my high school coach now, he would always say, baseball is like the best sport because you can fail 70% of the time, have a 300 batting average, and still make it into the Hall of Fame, and like in the MLB. But with God, you can succeed 0% of the time and still get into the Hall of Fame, which is heaven. And I don't remember when I realized that, but he's been saying that for years upon years. And just because of my stubbornness, I always tried to figure out something that you could succeed at less and still get into the Hall of Fame, when it was like right there all along. God, you can succeed 0% of the time. It doesn't matter if everybody looks at you like you're a failure. You can still plant seeds in other people. Even so, if you go up to that person at lunch and you sit with them and you start talking the gospel with them, and everybody is looking at you like, what are they doing? Man, they're talking to that person, and you don't know, because so many people will look at you like you're a failure, and then if you begin to think, man, I really fell on my face on that part. I really failed right there. But you planted that seed in that person, and then other people see that, and God takes that seed and he nurtures it. And it doesn't matter if like 5 years down the road, that person could be like, whoa, that kid that sat down with me at lunch was right. And I just think that's crazy, because so many times, because of my own pride, I'd feel like, man, dude, I don't want to fail. I don't want to look like that. Like, why me? And then one day, God just slapped me in the face and he said, stop thinking about yourself. Like, just go do it. And I would always think, man, I'm just not bold enough. I'm just not bold enough. And I was always asking God for him to make me more bold, but I never asked him to give me chances to be more bold. Because I would ask him, why am I not bold? Please make me bold. And then whenever he would give me a chance, I'd be like, well, I can't do that. And then I started taking advantage of those moments, and I couldn't let any more of my what ifs, like what if I do that? I couldn't let any of those turn into if onlys. Because I have so many regrets spiritually that, like, if only I had gotten back into the church sooner. If I was 10 years old back into the church, quit hockey, I'd do this. But definitely, when I learned to obey the Lord, my spiritual life grew immensely, and I stopped having all these feelings that I wasn't bold, I couldn't do this, I wasn't just a shy kid anymore. Because if I didn't start taking advantage of those moments when the Lord gave me to be bold, I wouldn't be up here talking right now. I mean, I'm still nervous about not being bold enough, but I'm still up here doing it because God's behind me the whole way. And if you ever feel like you don't have enough power, God does. And as long as God has enough power, then there's nothing that you can't overcome. I think we can go ahead and go on to the next one. So these are some things to take away. Just things like if you forget everything that I talked about, because it was kind of all over the place. These things are the things that stood out to me the most. Don't let the fear of failure prevent you from obeying the Lord, because that's what my fear was, and that's what my pride was rooted in. Because a lot of times when people think of pride, they'll think about like, oh, I'm better than you, but mine was more, I'm not good enough, which is still only thinking about myself and being selfish. And then the next point that I have is, if we can accept that everyone falls short, then that should include us too. Because whenever someone would mess up on the either the baseball team or the hockey team, I would always try and pick them up, because I'm like, everyone makes mistakes. But then when I would make a mistake, it'd be the end of the world. I'd be slamming my stick on the ice or throwing my baseball helmet when I got into the dugout when I would strike out or something. So we need acceptance that everyone falls short. That's not an excuse to fall short. That's acceptance. So we live out on a limb for the Lord, but then accept it when the world says that we fail. And then the last point that I have is God's plan trumps all others. Because so many times I would make plans for my life. I'd be like, oh man, I'm gonna go to this college. Like when I was, I don't know, 8 to 10 years old, I was like, oh man, I'm going to Liberty. So I would always go to hockey camps at Liberty and stay in the dorms and stuff over the summer. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to Liberty. It's the best place in the world. And then God's plan said, no, you're doing this. I've made so many plans for my life that God he'll either open another door and kick me through it, or he'll shut a door in my face, and then I have to turn around and climb out the window, because that's what he wants me to do. Yeah, so I think you can go to the next slide. So we're gonna have a time of prayer. So these are some things that you can pray about. First, I would ask, what is keeping me from obeying you? Because that's what I had to do, because I would always ask for the power to obey instead of asking the Lord to convict me. For me, it was hockey, but for you guys, it could be something completely different. It could be your phone, video games, a certain friendship or something. That's between you and the Lord. And then something else to pray is, how can I seek your plan more often instead of my own? Sometimes it's just as simple as, God, what do you want me to do in this instance? Instead of asking God, Lord, please make this happen. A lot of times we ask for him to do something instead of his will be done, and that's something that I still find myself doing and still need help with. But that's something that I can still pray about. Yeah, so I think you can